A sharp morning greeted the gathering crowd at the depot, scarves tugged up high and mittens flexed against the chill. The tang of diesel hung thickly in the drizzle, swirling as buses and carriages idled and rumbled under a sky the color of pewter. Groups clustered by the yellow safety line, voices bouncing and overlapping. The air alive with shouts, giggles, and the sizzle of anticipation. Feet stamped impatiently, sending puffs of steam into the cold as knitted hats bobbed with nervous energy. Posters for seaside resorts and family holiday camps lined the walls, their promise of summer jarring with the wintry hush. An orange glow blinked from the destination board, and passengers pressed forward, tickets clutched. Every horn and tannoy crackle sent ripples of suspense through the mass. A conductor's whistle, shrill and urgent, cut across the noise, and children peered past heavy rain-spattered windows, scanning for their ride. For a moment, time seemed to pause, stretched taut on the cusp of departure, the shared hope for adventure buoyed by the restless energy swirling in the station's heart. The double-decker loomed into view, red paintwork dulled by years of school runs, and a ripple of chatter ran through the waiting queue. Those first steps up into the cavernous lower deck brought the immediately recognizable scent of warm plastic, mingled with the faint musk rising from rain-soaked coats. Sliding onto the springy vinyl seats, bags thumped down onto the floor as friends jostled for the coveted spot beside the window. Above, the crackle of loose change resounded, whenever someone swept a handful of coins into the conductor's palm, the metallic rattle punctuating the morning's rituals. With a judder and moan, the engine began its familiar reverberation, sending a sympathetic rumble up through the soles of your shoes, a signal that soon the streets would be gliding past in a blur. Windows hazed with condensation as laughter spiraled between seats, and tiny finger trails mapped secret messages through the film. The top deck swayed more daringly over bumps, and outside, rooftops drifted past as the vehicle coaxed reluctant pupils from suburb to school. Overhead, the dull thrum of traffic mingled with the low drone of the bus's motor, and every so often a sharp turn set coats sliding and drew squeals of protest from those packed onto the front bench. Through all of it, the rhythm of journeys, repeated thumbs, tracing old graffiti, voices rising and falling, metallic coins exchanging hands until the final lurch and the scuffle to be first out into the world beyond. Claiming the window seat on a bus during the late 1970s or early 1980s felt like a private privilege, especially on a damp morning. The glass was almost always clouded with breath, diffusing the world outside into a watery, impressionist painting. Raindrops trailed down in lazy lines, rearranging themselves whenever the vehicle lurched or turned, merging and splitting like tiny rivulets. Outside, familiar rooftops scrolled past in muted succession, their chimneys and aerials half lost behind the persistent drizzle. Sometimes, a quick wipe of a shirt cuff cleared just enough of a patch to catch a clearer glimpse of back gardens and washing lines. Though almost immediately, the mist returned. The constant ache of the moist cold seeped in, despite attempts to trap warmth between palm and window pane. Occasionally, behind the softly blurred streaks, bedsits and red brick terraces would materialize and slip away, their inhabitants merely imagined figures. The oyster-grey light bled into every corner, softening shop signs and playground swings alike. Inside, the muffled shuffle of shoes and the rhythmic hum of the tires were mostly background to the gentle hypnotic effect of those shifting droplets. For those lucky enough to perch on the upper deck by the glass, it was a time for secret worlds, 100 fleeting stories invented in the space between rain-smeared scenes, passing with each turn of the wheel. These daydreams flourished in that misty cocoon, shaped by the chance silhouettes glimpsed in the half-seen windows and gardens sliding by. Between 1978 and 1986, the prospect of a train journey to a coastal getaway sparked a particular brand of excitement among children and families alike. Stepping onto the old station platform amid the tangle of summer luggage and cheery holidaymakers, one was greeted with a briny gust from the estuary, a teasing promise of the sea. The carriages carried a faded grandeur, worn yet enduring, their patterned seats faded by time and use. With a clatter and cough, the locomotive hissed to life, exhaling great billows of vapor that twisted skyward as the engine lurched forward. Eager hands pressed against cool, slightly sticky window glass, smudged with finger marks, hoping to catch the first glimpse of distant beach huts or the glint of sunlight on surf. There was an unmistakable rhythm as the train carved through countryside, track joints tapping beneath the floorboards, coach lights flickering with each undulation. The conductor moved along the aisle, his small, silver punch making neat holes in cardboard tickets each, snip a tangible, ritual mark of transit. The pungent temps of salt soon mingled with the metallic aroma of polished rails and warm, sun-baked carriage interiors. Children passed travel suites and flipped through dog-eared comics, the air alive with muffled laughter. The faintly acrid trace of cigarette smoke lingering in non-smoking compartments just a partition away. With every open window, the sharp breath of coastal breeze mingled with the humid, mechanical scent trailing behind. As rooftops fell away to flat fields and occasional bleached signposts, the promise of arcades and fish and chips seemed to shimmer on the horizon. Doors eventually clanked open at the last stop, and an impromptu chorus of voices tumbled onto the platform. Cheeks tingling from the salty wind and faces bright with anticipation for a day by the sea. Beneath the hulk of city buses, the quirks of drivers and conductors added a unique flavor to every journey between 1978 and 1986. Even before passengers boarded, the cheerily shouted greetings of conductors signaled the start of something familiar. Ritual formed from repetition and good humor. Many conductors wore uniforms that rasped against the skin, the fabric starched just enough to be scratchy, and somehow always seemed a little too big or oddly short in the sleeves. Some drivers exchanged knowing winks in the rearview mirror, mustaches bristling, while others would tap out a gentle rhythm on the dashboard as they waited for the last stragglers to board. Once inside, the unmistakable ding of a handheld bell summoned attention, echoing above the busy conversation and clipped announcements for the next stop. There were conductors who had a little trick for every situation. From balancing an impossible stack of coins on their fingertips to spinning ticket machines in their hands as if by sleight of hand, laughter, sometimes wry and sometimes full-throated, would ripple through the packed lower deck as the conductor exchanged a joke with someone headed for the city center, or called children by playful nicknames only heard on those morning routes. Amidst the bustle, the subtle creak of the old ticket machine and the gentle swish of polished shoes on linoleum created a background as recognizable as any signature tune. The buses absorbed each gesture. From a conductor cap perched at an off-kilter angle to a driver pausing just long enough for friends running desperately for the closing doors. Regular passengers grew to expect these flourishes, a dramatic flourish of a hat at the doorway, or a conductor's looping script scribbled with a stubby pencil, recording a complicated fare. The world outside blurred by, but inside, the everyday commute was shaped as much by these characters as by the routes themselves. Sun poured through high, plate-glass shop fronts, warming the aluminium railings and bus stop shelters scattered along the bustling high street. Summer in the city unfurled as a slow, shimmering haze above tarmac and brick. Every paving slab radiating stored heat up through plimsolls and bare knees. Bicycle wheels clicked over scorch marks left by the midday sun, and laughter skittered from clusters of friends darting past phone boxes and queues for ice creams. The sticky hum of midday was threaded with the strains of a guitar played by a busker stationed near the crossroads, his open case laced with coppers, and the odd pound note, every note drifting alongside, the scent of freshly baked bread from an adjacent bakery. Market stalls displayed neat piles of fruit glistening in the sunlight, mangoes and grapes seemingly glowing from within, while the gentle rustle of paper bags gave way to distant, tinny songs filtering from a transistor radio perched on the curb. Shoe soles slapped across cobbles still dusted pale from the baking heat, mixing with the faint ozone of city dust kicked up by passing feet. The continuous flow of traffic generated rolling waves of warm air and faint echoes of laughter, overlaid by the brisk click of a skateboard and shouts from a nearby playground. The copper tang of coins and tarmac mingled with the low drone of conversation, punctuated by the sharp strum of the busker's guitar and an undercurrent of sun-baked earth. Even the post boxes glowed redder in the heat, and the gleam of bus wings as they waited by curbsides brought out sun-softened reflections. Every step, every sound, was caught in a golden mid-afternoon, an urban adventure marked by sunlight, music, and the ever-present glaze of the summer city. In the wake of those years, one can't help but sense what slipped quietly away from daily life. The worn edges of travel posters still cling stubbornly to disused walls, their once bright images softening and curling in dusty corners, silent witnesses to thousands of everyday odysseys. Echoes of laughter, once unself-conscious and frequent, seem embedded in the brickwork, summoned on a breeze or by the hush of a platform long after the crowds have dispersed. The taste of adventure fused with routines, schoolchildren swapping stories, commuters offering a word or a smile to a neighbor, wove a subtle bond within those spaces. The heavy air, remembering a time when a faint haze from engines lingered even as the world outside moved briskly, clings to memory with a persistence hard to articulate. Those simple commutes, bracketed by minor rituals and communal exchanges, instilled a sense of togetherness that often went unspoken. Today, among faded reminders, the sensation of shared purpose and spontaneous connection is difficult to recapture, replaced by something more private and fleeting. The magic of communal journeys was not just in the destinations, but in the ephemeral mosaic created by lives briefly intersecting, charm grown elusive with every passing decade. As those years drift quietly away, what lingers is the gentle departure of engines fading into the distance, mingling with the last soft flutter of a breeze that once ruffled collars and hair on busy platforms. Faces glowing in the half-light, warmed by anticipation and the company of friends, remain imprinted in memories, miles exchanged as wheels turned, and hands waved their goodbyes. From the dull clang of departure to the settling calm that followed, each journey has become a thread woven through the fabric of everyday nostalgia. Even now, the sensation of moving air and distant laughter feels almost within reach, sparking recollections of ordinary yet precious days. One wonders what stories fellow travelers would share, should those moments return once more. The echoes of cheerful departures and the promise of adventure now live on, calling us to remember and tell our own tales anew.